Hello. and I'm very happy to present in this 10 minutes our contribution of today's discussion and marathon. It's called Seoullo, and it's a part of a project that brings Seoul from 1.0 into maybe 3.0. So you know how Seoul looked like a while ago, gray, traffic everywhere, and people found it extremely boring at that moment. And at a certain moment, with new politicians that came up, there was this kind of, moment that they want to show a plaza in front of the town square, or that they made this highway into a river, or that they turned the area before the parliament building into a plaza. And there are some people that say in the world that due to this kind of opening act, that the the president had to go, that Samsung had to reduce its oligarchic functions, and that somehow a certain democracy has been encouraged in this city. So what can Seoullo, our bridge, then contribute in that perspective? I think it is very good that there are politicians that are active, and politics are not bad. Urbanism is about polis, is about politics, and sometimes we have to help each other in that way. Mr. Park, what is in a name, is like one of those, and maybe the next president of South Korea. I'll take you to this moment, to the design of this bridge, a very awkward bridge. It was the only place that the government owns in an area that was completely run by private institutions and private owners. So what could they do in order to make this station area better? Why not do something with this bridge? The building is strong, but not so strong. So if you start to turn that into, say, the new High Line, not copying the High Line at all, I'm aware, because it's, and I love Piet Oudolf, and I love Dylan Escofidio in that way too much. But this project it's good to have a repertoire in the future of more doublifications of our planet. Most of the money goes into the strengthening of the project. I mean, if you, this viaduct is doing this, and in order to make that, you get this. But there are more projects. Because of that, I have to make a strong floor to stabilize the power in that way. And that is a good base for the next step. A floor that you show the powers in it, and a floor where I cannot put soil everywhere because it's too heavy. So I have to make a 3 pots project where I want to make for every plant that I like the best situation. If I need more water, then I have to do that. If I need more sand, then I have to do that in that way. And then it's kind of funny to see this collection. Because anyway, this is beautiful as a pot. And for this ginkgo biloba, it's also very beautiful to make that pot under this one. And then they asked us, choose. And then I couldn't choose in that way, because they are all beautiful. And then it becomes somehow biopolitical, I could imagine. That you say, I love everybody. So how to do that? And then you look to what Seoul is offering. And can we imagine then in this place a kind of library of, can we use and can we put all these plants and test how they behave in artificial circumstances? I know it's an urban ecology and not a kind of, an ecology of the earth. So how to do that? And how to make even roses or rhododendrons equipped for that? And how to sort them then? Because there is a lot of discussion in landscape architecture of composition. I put them from A till Z, of course, in Korean letters. And then there is no discussion about composition. It's very clear for all those people that maintain and that discuss it. And you get beautiful combinations from rosas into rudbeckias, whoever have done that before. But where to start? So we started from the east to the west, from A till Z. That's a choice, a political choice that it's sometimes hard to discuss in the US. So what is the next? You accompany it with a text that explain it, that education is part of the project as such. And you ask everyone that is there also to participate. Yes, the toilet should have a new plant on top of it, or your cafe, of course, or this shop, the commercial parts, or this library. And actually we can make a beautiful collection. And here already there are 2 differences with the High Line in that way. And we make a catalog, and we make program on top of it. And what to do then? Then I want to have it open. It's Asia, 24/7. Please, not like in London parks or even in the High Line that you close it as such. And that is a project in itself I will show. And then you give access with bridges, with stairs, with ramps, and you make satellites as another project in the neighborhoods. So we made tests, always. How does it function on that place? And yes, you see trees that do well, and others that, how is communication then happening? And then there's the result. Say this thing that goes through the city between the high rises, that makes bridges everywhere where possible. You start from A, pass by the different species, the first shops that are there, the maple leaves that come across, come to the plaza where these bridges are there, and every bridge gives money, basically, because yes, you want to have a hotel or a cafe over there to look at this. And then you stage more, you dance on this plaza, you try to walk further, you see the access over there, and you see the pipe work. I think this underside, there are cold pipes and hot pipes in order -40 to 20 degrees, how to maintain that in that way. And then you can walk further on this floating over this, and you see the other species, you hang out with your friends, you swim a little bit, you jump in between the plants, and there are of course picture points. Hanging out over the street, you can walk further, explaining the plants, look down to enjoy the traffic and go further in this national species. Look to the water lilies and go to these viewing points and look back and to the front where you are going. And of course, selfies is part of our cultures. Not make one selfie point for projects. That's horrible. Make millions so that every time you have another place to go to and to see. And there is a lot of technology, nozzles that create this water in that way. Plants that look like that and turn it into gardens. The taxus gardens, the pine tree gardens, and finally also the rose gardens and the rose cafe. This is what it is. Not more, not less. But let's go later in the year. What happens then? The things start to grow. And with 25 gardeners and 25 homeless people, we try to make the maintenance plan of this area. And you see that it's used, how the birch tree area can be, how the roses and the hibiscus is growing, how the water lilies became so big that we have to make more pots in that way, how you can sit in between, and somehow that people are taking it over is what it wants to be. You give a start, you give a reference, and it goes on. Not only during the day, but also in the night. When this blue light floats over the city, it makes a place where you want to love. I mean, it's so clear that these days we are so afraid in our countries and make huge lights that kill any intimacy in the evening in order to save each other. But on the other hand, how to find an optimum in that way where you want to be nice also and cozy and where you want to show yourself or have parties in a kind of intimate and nice way, where the plants are the stars in this universe, where this kind of technique shows the potential of that plant, how much water it needs, how much sun it needs, and how much oxygen it gives. And then maybe you have this kind of atmospheres. Maybe you want to sit in this place. Maybe you want to walk. Maybe you want to photograph again, is what this wants to be, day and night. And I invite you to be there at 2 o'clock. It is, of course, accompanied with technology. We show it. We have these things on board. We know how much water is going to it. And it's opening up the data, is one of it. And then I'm happy that the soap series of Korea are now there and that they are somehow taking over that moment. And that the press is somehow like talking about it a little bit, and that some of them make a critical analysis, like The Guardian, about what it could be. And I'm very happy about that. And then I witness a certain usage. Let's say this is not a big park. This is 1 hectare, 1 kilometer long, 10 meter wide. And what would that mean? If this was the starting point a year ago, and then this is going to happen, I zoom a little bit in on these moments of the day. Where are my plants, is my question. Or the fire people that get a little bit nervous at that moment, and that we have to add more amenities. 1 million visitors per year, that's more busy than, say, Euro Disney in Paris at that moment. How to facilitate that? It's a luxury, and it's an honor, honestly. I get somehow tears of it if I look at those numbers, this is after 2.5 months, and that we are now happy also to extend. yes, this is at the situation as it is. This is how one of the bridge ends. And now, how are we going to continue to make this plan? Here with 7 architects from Korea, the next stands are going to be made. To go into these villages that gradually transform in different means for that. To take this toll bridge and to go further that connects it. And that also this factory lanes are part of the operation. And then, are we then finished? This is what we started, what I found. This is what we made a year ago. This is the next step that we're doing. And gradually, I'm looking to this kind of process, where simply this library of plants is somehow a point of reference. Not more, not less. You can pick your plant, take it to the next example, and gradually, maybe this Seoul 2.0 turns then, in a while, into a fantastic, say, next area of Seoul, where initiatives on the green level are combined with this heavy attack on this grayness that we see. And that is what I hope that then we can talk about Seoul 3.0. Thank you very much.
Well, I start. Naturally, I was very impressed by the next steps, because this is very interesting. I mean, probably you start understanding when the buildings nearby asked to build a bridge to connect it, no? So the bridge became not anymore just a bridge, but became an urban something. You cannot call it infrastructure anymore, no? It's something else. So how the client, which is the state, the city of Seoul, is managing that, because it's a level of complexity which is increasing, but it's also challenging because it shows possibility that probably was not conceived at the beginning. No? So what are you learning from this project?
A couple of things, that we need good politicians to talk directly. We need a good team for maintenance. We need volunteers that are surrounding this. We have, like in New York, you have committees that help. You need schools to train people. And in this case, every problem you simply attack in that way. Like the homeless people, the homeless program, which I was not aware of in the very beginning. I have some experience in Rotterdam, but then to bring it then how to deal with that in that case, that people are allowed to sleep in this place, and that so there are so many benches that mean 30 homeless people is okay in that way. So that's.
So you are allowed if you became a gardener. If you can play with the garden, if you can maintain it.
So you continue. I mean, of course, I asked immediately from the very beginning, I can make a garden, but I want to have a contract for 5 years, so that I can come back. And that's Piet Oudolf had learned me that. And to say, okay, then we do that. Secondly, I think the technology paid by Samsung was very helpful in that way. But you can do it also with Tencent or with Philips, when it does, who cares? But they have to help on that. For the monitoring, people, but monitoring also plants and water systems is what is in it. And another thing, what we kept a certain budget for, that's normal. When you make a garden, you know that maybe 10% dies. That's really a system of landscape architecture. But from the beginning, a certain budget that you can do this kind of changes are in it. And then I think the other thing, the dream of these bridges, to connect them, we didn't expect that would bring so much money to apply for, say, this maintenance system, or for people to sponsor for the next phase.
I was just wondering, when you started off with these images of Seoul as a very grey city, it seemed very devoid of landscape. Was there a landscape tradition that was brought back to life, a Korean landscape tradition that was brought back to life by this project?
Yeah, we collaborate with, so first to start with, the Asian city, or especially Seoul, you build basically in the valley and you keep the hills free. It's too expensive, so that's why you don't use it, but you don't use the mountains. Secondly, but the valleys, the only landscape architecture that is there is not based on the rivers, it's based on gardens, and also in Korea. So the gardens have a specific, say, cultural domain of growing the trees. The trees are normally grown in a special, say, domain somewhere in Seoul. the nursery. So we worked with that nursery to get, say, a maximum amount of this kind of species, say like azaleas, that you have this kind of, that they are trimmed in that way. Second thing, we work with the botanical garden of Seoul, so that somehow they give us input on the, say, the scientific level, which species, and on the testing of new species that come in. Funnily, South Korea, what's in a name, is a peninsula, so it's a bit like New Zealand. You are not allowed to bring in new species of that way, so it's very restricted. And so the quarantine compartment of the nurseries is an interesting one, and so we help. We are based with them, so because yeah, that's a Dutch say knowledge that you bring in, that certain species grow there very well, can help also to make better potatoes or better apples in that way. So that's what we do. And the last thing is with the University of Agriculture, the whole monitoring system, what data comes out to come in, is also done by them. And then another thing, the trees become big. What do you do then? So you put them out and put them there. So this can also be seen in as a nursery.
Do you think that for the cost and political condition, may be possible to realize a similar project in Europe at this moment?
I'm happy to announce that certain cities are indeed looking to this kind of fringes projects. Paris did that. Glasgow is on the edge to make one. And Rotterdam with the Hofplein line at the very moment that we are speaking. And I'm interested in that way, what kind of other bridges will that give? So I do think in that way that the Glasgow bridge will be a jungle. So complete other concept. Structure is much more safer. The Rotterdam bridge will be about like a collection of people, because Rotterdam hates superstars and hates the concept of mono. So they want to be diverse as possible. So that already is a kind of translation, what I think politically is interesting to see in that case. I do think, the next thing to add, that this is a laboratory for artificial circumstances of growing. And I appreciate what with the Torre del Bosco has been done here in Milano, and it's very exemplary. And to team up with each other, to find a way that not only the vertical, but also this, and also the stacked can be imagined. I know, we cannot do everything. But it might be, in the end, one way of dealing with certain issues of cooling in the cities. And I must say that more and more people, more and more politicians would like to do it. So I'm actually maybe more positive than you would expect.
So my question goes with this, what you were saying, the artificial growing of trees, and how do you deal with this data? What are you doing with all this data information, like putting it in the web and in the books? And I think it's very interesting to know a different way of growing plants.
So there are a couple of sources for that. One is indeed to show those data in books. Better nog to bring it in our next maintenance systems in our cities, where we want to show what the sewage is doing, or what toilets are doing, or the lights are doing, and to have that maintenance, that data also in there. And that for me is quite an important project. I mean, I dream about I call war rooms, like situations in the city where I can see what is happening everywhere in that city. And then I give kind of access to public data, so hopefully it contributes to this jump from private to public data in that aspect. Another thing which is important is ultimately to bring this data together with also the knowledge on air roots, growing systems in concrete, etc., to bring it into our built material. So to bring, say, from the anorganic momentum in architecture, to bring it into the organic momentum. It's too early for that, but that is of course the dream behind it, that you make concrete that can go down, but can turn again into nature, or that you also have, say, then buildings where animals live and not only human beings. This is a first mini step for that.
One simple question. So you have a project now in Moscow. Thank you for that. Personal from me, thank you. So possibly you know that in Moscow and in other cities, Russian, now there is a huge program of landscaping design of the common spaces, urban common spaces. So, and almost each mayor of each city asks every time one question: what will be the economic effect of this landscaping design? How do you think, is there some kind of system to calculate this? It's your personal opinion.
We start with, in this case, with the Wife Factory and with the university, Erasmus University in Rotterdam, the research on the economics of beauty. So what is the, how much, if you make a good bridge in Rotterdam, what's the spin-off in that case? How much will it bring in terms of real estate value? How much will it bring in terms of reduction of energy or in reduction of, say, waste polluters? So that will be indeed measured. It's a bit speculative, to be honest, to say, you can see it in the High Line in New York, how many, say, people are investing in it. But ultimately, I must say that our ground price calculations, how much are we asking from investors to pay for air rights, not about ground rights, that I don't care a shit about that. But the fact that you make towers, how much do you pay off for that? To make that more clear and public in that way, what does it give in the end? So you can research it from two sides. You can research it from the difference between selling costs and making costs, okay? And you, on the other hand, you can make it by what you learn from these projects, from how much benefit can come from this. In this case, yes, we know a little bit now, the spin-off. And I'm not allowed to tell today a little bit more about that because that's too short. But I do hope, because as this thing now, with the opening up of the new railway line between between Moscow, Vladivostok, and Pyongyang to Seoul, that they want to have it here. Now, that's the best revenue this project can ever have, besides your price. But that's it. Thank you.